The sound echoed across the restaurant. Forks stopped moving. Conversations died instantly. More than 50 people turned toward our table. And for one humiliating second, nobody breathed. Neither did I. My hand slowly moved to my cheek where my husband's palm had landed. The sting wasn't what hurt. It was the silence afterward. The disbelief. The fact that everyone had seen it. Family, friends, coworkers, even strangers celebrating birthdays at nearby tables. All of them staring, waiting, watching. I sat frozen in my chair while my husband, Brian, looked just as shocked as everyone else. As if he couldn't believe what he had done. The waiter standing beside our table nearly dropped the anniversary cake. 10 years. 10 years of marriage. And this was how our anniversary dinner ended. Brian opened his mouth. Claire. I stood up immediately. Not because I wanted to yell. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I suddenly realized something terrifying. This wasn't the first time he had crossed a line. It was simply the first time he had done it publicly. The room remained silent as I grabbed my purse. Brian stood. Claire, wait. I didn't. I walked straight through the restaurant. Past the staring faces. Past the embarrassed manager. Past the guests pretending not to watch. By the time I reached the parking lot, my hands were shaking. Not from fear. From clarity. A strange kind of clarity. The kind that arrives after a disaster. I sat inside my car for nearly 20 minutes. Then I made a decision. A decision that would change everything. I wasn't going home. At least not permanently. For the first time in years, I asked myself a question I had spent too long avoiding. If this happened in front of everyone, what else was I excusing? The answer hurt. Too many things. The controlling behavior. The insults disguised as jokes. The constant criticism. The way Brian always found a reason to make me feel smaller. I started the engine. And drove home. Not to stay. To leave. 30 minutes later, I was inside our bedroom packing a suitcase. Clothes. Passport. Cash. Laptop. Only the essentials. The house felt strangely quiet. Almost peaceful. Then I heard a vehicle pull into the driveway. Brian. Earlier than expected. My pulse quickened. I wasn't ready to face him. Not yet. I grabbed my suitcase and headed toward the garage. Then I heard something unexpected. Another car. Not Brian's. I froze. Headlights swept across the living room windows. A black SUV. My stomach tightened instantly. I had never seen it before. The driver remained inside. Watching the house. Not moving. Not leaving. Just watching. For several seconds, I stood hidden behind the curtains. The SUV remained there. Engine running. Lights off. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. Then Brian's truck arrived. The SUV immediately drove away. Fast. As if it had been waiting for him. A chill ran down my spine. I watched Brian get out of his truck. His face looked panicked. Desperate. Nothing like the angry man from the restaurant. Then something even stranger happened. Brian pulled out his phone. And instead of coming inside, he made a call. I couldn't hear the conversation. But I could see his expression. Fear. Real fear. The kind I'd never seen before. Then he looked directly toward the house. Toward our bedroom window. Toward me. And whispered 3 words into the phone that made my blood run cold. She's leaving tonight. I stepped back from the curtain. My heart pounding. Because suddenly I wasn't sure Brian was afraid of losing me. I was starting to think he was afraid of something else. And somehow, my leaving had just ruined whatever plan he was trying to protect. I remained frozen beside the bedroom window. 3 words repeated inside my head. She's leaving tonight. Brian hadn't sounded heartbroken. He hadn't sounded desperate. He sounded worried. As if my departure created a problem. A serious one. I carefully stepped away from the curtain before he could see me. My suitcase sat open on the bed. For a moment, I considered abandoning everything and sneaking out through the garage. Then another thought stopped me. What if I was overreacting? Maybe Brian had called a friend. Maybe he was embarrassed after the restaurant incident. Maybe there was a simple explanation. Then my phone buzzed. A text message. Unknown number. I frowned. Almost nobody had my private number. The message contained only one sentence. Do not let him know where you are going. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen. No name. No explanation. Nothing. Just a warning. Another message appeared seconds later. Leave before midnight. Every instinct inside me screamed that something was wrong. Very wrong. Then I heard the front door open. Brian was inside. His footsteps moved across the first floor. Slow. Deliberate. I quickly locked my phone and shoved it into my purse. The bedroom door opened moments later. Brian stopped when he saw the suitcase. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. He looked exhausted. Not angry. Not defensive. Afraid. Claire. I raised a hand. Don't. His eyes landed on my cheek. The mark from the slap was still visible. A shadow of guilt crossed his face. I deserve that. The answer surprised me. Brian never admitted fault. Ever. Yet tonight he looked like a different person. Then he said something even stranger. You need to leave. My pulse quickened. What? Leave tonight. The room felt suddenly colder. I stared at him. You want me to leave? No. The word came instantly. Then why are you telling me to go? Brian looked toward the hallway, as if checking whether someone might overhear us. The behavior made no sense. We were alone. Then he lowered his voice. You need to trust me. I almost laughed. Trust? After what happened at the restaurant? Brian rubbed his forehead. There's no time to explain everything. Every alarm bell inside my head started ringing. Explain what? He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to his desk drawer and removed a thick envelope. Cash. Thousands of dollars. My eyes widened. Brian placed it on the bed. Take it. I stared at the money. What is this? Emergency funds. Emergency. The word sounded terrifying coming from him. Then another text message arrived. My phone buzzed inside my purse. Brian immediately noticed. His face lost color. Who keeps texting you? The fear in his voice was unmistakable. Not curiosity. Fear. I slowly removed the phone. The third message had arrived. This one made my blood run cold. He already knows they are watching the house. Do not trust anyone. Especially him. I looked up. Brian was staring directly at me. Then his phone rang. The moment he saw the caller ID, panic exploded across his face. He answered immediately. Yes. Silence. Then Brian's expression turned pale. Completely pale. His hand started shaking. No, she hasn't left yet. Another pause. Then he looked directly at me. And I realized something horrifying. Whoever was on the other end wasn't asking about him. They were asking about me. Brian swallowed hard. Then he whispered a sentence that made every hair on my body stand up. I said I'll have her ready. The call ended. The room fell silent. And for the first time in 10 years of marriage, I became genuinely afraid of my husband. The silence after the call felt unbearable. I stared at Brian. He stared back. Neither of us spoke. But something had changed. The man standing in front of me no longer looked like my husband. He looked like someone trapped. Someone terrified. Someone hiding something dangerous. My eyes drifted toward the envelope of cash on the bed. Then back to him. Have me ready for what? Brian immediately looked away. The reaction was answer enough. For what? I repeated. His jaw tightened. You need to leave. That's not an answer. The frustration in my voice rose. Who keeps texting me? Who called you? Why are people watching the house? Brian ran both hands through his hair. Claire, please. Just go. That word again. Go. Leave. Run. The more he pushed me away, the more suspicious I became. Then another notification appeared on my phone. This time it wasn't a text. It was a photograph. My pulse stopped. The image showed our house. Taken from across the street. Recently. Very recently. The lights inside were on. My bedroom window was visible. The timestamp showed 11 minutes ago. Someone had been watching us. Not days ago. Not last week. Right now. Then a second image arrived. This one made my blood run cold. It showed Brian standing in the driveway making the phone call I'd witnessed earlier. The angle proved the photographer had been hiding nearby, watching everything. A third message followed. You have less than 1 hour. I looked up slowly. Brian's face had turned pale. What happened? I showed him the screen. The moment he saw the photographs, all color disappeared from his face. No. His reaction wasn't surprise. It was recognition. Brian knew exactly who sent them. Tell me what's happening. He didn't answer immediately. Then something unexpected happened. The front doorbell rang. Everyone froze. The sound echoed through the house. Once. Twice. 3 times. Brian looked terrified. Not annoyed. Terrified. Don't answer it. The words came instantly. Who is it? No answer. The bell rang again. Longer this time. More aggressive. Then came knocking. Hard knocking. The kind police use when serving warrants. My heart hammered. Brian moved toward the bedroom door. Stay here. I followed him anyway. By the time we reached the staircase, the knocking had stopped. The silence felt worse. Then I heard a voice outside. Male. Calm. Confident. Brian. We know she's inside. Every muscle in my body tightened. Brian closed his eyes. Almost as if he'd been expecting this. The voice continued. You have 5 minutes. Then a vehicle engine started outside. Followed by another. And another. I peeked through the living room curtain. My stomach dropped. 3 black SUVs. Parked along the street. Men standing beside them. Watching the house. Watching every exit. I stepped back instantly. Who are they? Brian looked exhausted. People I owe. The answer made no sense. Money? Is this about money? No. His voice sounded hollow. It's about something much worse. Then he finally said the sentence I'd been waiting for. 3 years ago, I made a mistake. A mistake that involved very dangerous people. My pulse accelerated. What kind of mistake? Brian looked directly into my eyes. The kind that gets people killed. Before I could respond, a loud crash exploded from the back of the house. Glass shattered. An alarm began screaming. Someone had entered through the kitchen. The men outside were no longer waiting. They were coming inside. And judging by Brian's expression, they weren't here to collect money. They were here for me. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the house. For a second, I couldn't move. The alarm continued screaming from downstairs while footsteps rushed across the kitchen floor. Someone was inside. Brian grabbed my arm. We have to go. My heart pounded. Who are they? No time. That answer only made me angrier. For the last hour, Brian had done nothing but hide the truth. Now armed men were entering our home. And somehow I was supposed to trust him. Another crash sounded below. A male voice shouted orders. More footsteps followed. At least 3 men. Maybe more. Brian pulled me toward the hallway. Then I stopped. Hard. No. He turned. What? Tell me the truth. Now. For a moment I thought he would refuse again. Instead, his shoulders dropped. Like a man finally running out of lies. They're not here because of me. The words hit me like ice water. What? Brian looked directly into my eyes. They're here because of you. My stomach dropped. That doesn't make any sense. I don't owe anyone anything. I don't know any criminals. Brian nodded. I know. Then why are they looking for me? The answer came quietly. Because somebody thinks you're someone else. Every nerve in my body went rigid. Someone else? Before Brian could explain, a voice echoed from downstairs. Claire. I froze. The stranger knew my name. The voice continued. We only want to talk. Brian immediately pulled me backward. Don't listen to them. The fear in his voice felt genuine. Then another memory surfaced. Something from months earlier. A strange encounter at a grocery store. A woman had approached me and stared for nearly 30 seconds. When I asked if we knew each other, she looked terrified and left immediately. At the time I thought it was weird. Now I wasn't so sure. Brian rushed me toward the master bedroom. There's a fire escape ladder on the balcony. We'll use it. My pulse accelerated. You still haven't explained anything. Then Brian finally said the words that changed everything. Your name isn't Claire Monroe. The room went silent. I stared at him. What? Brian looked devastated. Your real name is Claire Walker. The blood drained from my face. No, that's impossible. I knew my name. I knew my life. My parents. My childhood. Everything. Brian shook his head. Not everything. The world seemed to tilt beneath me. Then another voice came from downstairs. This time female. Older. Emotional. Claire. The sound stopped me cold. Because somehow, the voice felt familiar. Deeply familiar. A strange feeling settled inside my chest. Like hearing a song you haven't heard since childhood. Brian noticed my reaction immediately. Don't. But it was too late. I moved toward the balcony door. The woman downstairs shouted again. Claire, we've been searching for you for 27 years. My heart nearly stopped. 27 years. The exact number of years I'd been alive. No. No way. Brian looked trapped. Cornered. Guilty. Then another truth surfaced. The anniversary dinner. The slap. The argument. It suddenly felt staged. Planned. I turned toward him slowly. Why did you slap me? His eyes filled with regret. Because if you left me willingly, I knew they'd finally find you. The room went completely silent. And in that moment, I realized something horrifying. Brian hadn't been trying to keep me trapped. For 3 years. He had been trying to keep me hidden. I stared at Brian, unable to speak. Nothing made sense anymore. 3 hours earlier, I thought my biggest problem was a husband who humiliated me at our anniversary dinner. Now strangers were surrounding our house, claiming they had searched for me for 27 years. And Brian was telling me my name wasn't even real. The room felt like it was spinning. You're lying. The words came out automatically. They had to. Because the alternative was impossible. Brian looked heartbroken. I wish I was. The female voice downstairs called my name again. This time I moved toward the bedroom window. Carefully. Slowly. I looked down into the front yard. A woman stood near the porch. Mid-50s. Dark hair. Tears running down her face. The moment she looked up, our eyes met. And something happened. A strange feeling. Like recognition. Not from memory. From instinct. The woman immediately covered her mouth. Her knees nearly gave out. Then she whispered something I couldn't hear. Brian stepped beside me. That's her. Who? The woman's searching for you. My pulse accelerated. What does she want? Brian closed his eyes. You. The answer wasn't comforting. Then he handed me something. A folded photograph. Old. Worn. Damaged by time. I stared at it. And my entire body went cold. The picture showed a little girl. Maybe 3 years old. Standing beside a woman. The same woman outside. The resemblance was undeniable. The little girl looked exactly like me. Same eyes. Same smile. Same birthmark beneath the left ear. The room went silent. I touched the photograph with trembling fingers. Where did you get this? Brian swallowed hard. A private investigator. The answer made my stomach drop. Private investigator? 3 years ago. My pulse quickened. 3 years. The exact amount of time we'd been married. Brian nodded slowly. I was hired to find you. The words hit like a truck. What? Before we met. Before our first date. Before everything. The world seemed to stop. No. No. That wasn't possible. The relationship. The proposal. The wedding. Was it all fake? Brian looked away. At first, yes. Pain shot through my chest. At first. The words echoed endlessly. At first. Then Brian looked directly at me. But somewhere along the way I fell in love with you. I couldn't respond. My emotions were colliding too fast. Anger. Confusion. Fear. Heartbreak. Then another voice echoed from downstairs. Male this time. Claire Walker. Federal Marshals. We need you to come outside. Federal Marshals. My stomach dropped instantly. This wasn't a family dispute. This wasn't some misunderstanding. The federal government was involved. Then Brian suddenly froze. His eyes locked onto something outside. The fear on his face returned instantly. Much worse than before. I looked through the window. A fourth SUV had arrived. Black. Unmarked. Different from the others. The moment the vehicle stopped, every federal marshal outside turned toward it. Tension filled the yard. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The rear door opened. A man stepped out. Tall. Gray suit. Confident. The second Brian saw him, he whispered a curse. "Who is that?" Brian looked terrified. "The one person I prayed would never find you." My pulse exploded. "Why?" Brian didn't answer immediately. Then he looked directly into my eyes. "Because 27 years ago, he's the man who kidnapped you." The world stopped. The woman outside wasn't a stranger. The marshals weren't hunting me. And suddenly the most dangerous person in America knew exactly where I was. For several seconds, I couldn't breathe. Kidnapped. The word echoed through my head like a siren. 27 years ago, a man had stolen me from my family. And according to Brian, that man was standing outside my house. Watching. Waiting. My legs felt weak. The woman in the yard. The photograph. The marshals. Everything suddenly fit together. In the worst possible way. I turned toward Brian. "Who is he?" Brian looked toward the window again. His face had gone pale. "His name is Victor Hale." The name meant nothing to me. But the fear in Brian's eyes meant everything. "Why is everyone afraid of him?" Brian hesitated. Then he answered quietly. "Because he's never been caught." The room fell silent. Outside, federal agents were moving into position. Weapons ready. Vehicles blocking the street. Neighbors peeking through curtains. The entire neighborhood had become a crime scene. And at the center of it all was me. Victor stepped away from the SUV. Completely calm. As if dozens of armed federal agents weren't surrounding him. That confidence terrified me. Then another memory flashed through my mind. A recurring nightmare I'd had since childhood. A dark road. A black vehicle. A man singing softly. I always assumed it was a dream. Now I wasn't so sure. Brian noticed my expression. "What is it?" I described the nightmare. His face changed instantly. The blood drained from it. "Claire." "What?" "Victor used to sing to you." Every nerve in my body froze. "How do you know that?" "Because it was in the investigation files." The room seemed to tilt. My nightmare wasn't imaginary. It was a memory. A real memory. Then a voice echoed from outside. Victor's voice. "Claire." The sound made my skin crawl, even though I had never consciously heard it before. Somewhere deep inside me, I recognized it. The realization terrified me. Victor continued speaking. "You don't belong with them." The marshals immediately ordered him to stop. He ignored them. Then he looked directly toward my bedroom window. Toward me. "Claire. I know you remember." My pulse exploded. "Remember what?" A strange pressure formed inside my chest. Anxiety. Confusion. Fear. Then another flash appeared. A stuffed rabbit. A blue blanket. A woman crying. The images vanished instantly. But they felt real. Painfully real. Suddenly one of the marshals approached Victor. The situation escalated quickly. Voices rose. Orders were shouted. Then Victor laughed. Actually laughed. The sound sent chills through me. "He's not afraid," I whispered. Brian nodded. "Because he thinks he's going to win." The answer made no sense. "How?" The entire federal government was outside. Then Brian pointed toward Victor's SUV. "Look." I followed his gaze. And noticed something strange. The rear passenger door remained open. Nobody was getting out. Nobody was entering. Yet Victor kept glancing toward it. Like something important remained inside. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. My stomach tightened instantly. Another message. This one contained only a photograph. The image made my blood run cold. A little girl. Around 6 years old. Blonde hair. Blue jacket. Terrified eyes. The timestamp showed today's date. Today. Not years ago. Then another message arrived. "Victor isn't here for you." The room suddenly felt ice cold. I stared at the screen. What? A third message appeared seconds later. "He's here because somebody else was taken." Every muscle in my body tightened. Then the final message arrived. "Look inside the SUV." And suddenly I realized why Victor wasn't afraid of the marshals. Because he wasn't protecting himself. He was protecting whoever was hidden in that vehicle. My eyes remained locked on the photograph. A terrified little girl. Taken today. Not years ago. Today. Every instinct inside me screamed the same thing. She was inside that SUV. I showed the image to Brian. His expression immediately darkened. We have to tell the marshals. I nodded. But before either of us moved, another message arrived. Do not call. Do not reply. Somebody inside the operation is helping Victor. My stomach dropped. A leak. Again. The words felt horrifying. Federal agents were everywhere outside. Yet someone among them might be secretly protecting a kidnapper. Brian looked over my shoulder. Can you trace the number? I tried. Blocked. Encrypted. Nothing. Whoever was sending the messages knew what they were doing. Outside, the standoff continued. Victor stood calmly beside the SUV. Talking. Negotiating. Buying time. The longer I watched him, the more one thing became obvious. He wasn't trying to escape. He was waiting for something. Or someone. Then another memory slammed into me. A flash. A road at night. A gas station. The smell of gasoline. A voice saying everything would be okay. I grabbed the edge of the dresser. The memory felt stronger this time. Closer. Real. Brian caught me before I lost balance. Claire? I think I'm remembering. His eyes widened. Then another flash appeared. A small silver necklace. A butterfly charm. A woman placing it around my neck. The woman from the yard. My mother. The realization hit hard. Not because I remembered everything. Because I remembered enough. Enough to know she was telling the truth. Then a loud shout came from outside. One of the marshals had approached the SUV. Victor immediately became agitated. For the first time all day. There. That reaction. He was afraid of something inside. The marshal reached for the rear door. Victor lunged. Chaos erupted instantly. Agents tackled him. Weapons were drawn. Orders were shouted. The street exploded into movement. Then the SUV door swung open. Every person froze. The little girl from the photograph sat inside. Exactly as the text message warned. Terrified. Crying. Alive. My stomach twisted. The sight felt like looking into a mirror from the past. Another child. Another victim. Another family waiting years for answers. Victor screamed as agents pinned him to the pavement. The sound was filled with rage. Not fear. Rage. As if someone had ruined his plans. Then something unexpected happened. The little girl looked toward my house. Toward my bedroom window. Toward me. For one brief second our eyes met. And I understood exactly how she felt. Lost. Confused. Terrified. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message. Final message. Victor never worked alone. Cold dread spread through me. I stared at the screen. What? Another photograph appeared. This one wasn't a child. It was an adult. A man. My pulse stopped. No. The image showed someone standing outside our anniversary restaurant the night before. Watching me and Brian. Watching us. I zoomed in. And my blood ran cold. Because I recognized him instantly. The sender wasn't exposing Victor. The sender was exposing someone else. Someone much closer. Someone I trusted. Someone who had spent 3 years by my side. Slowly, I turned toward Brian. His face had gone completely white. He recognized the man too. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. Because the photograph showed the person who paid Brian to find me 27 years after my kidnapping. And according to the timestamp, that person had been watching us long before Victor appeared. Then another message arrived. Just 4 words. Ask Brian about Chicago. The room went silent. Because whatever happened in Chicago, Brian clearly never wanted me to know about it. The words on my phone felt heavier than anything I had read all day. Ask Brian about Chicago. I slowly lowered the screen. Brian already looked defeated. His face told me everything. He knew exactly what the message meant. Outside, federal agents were arresting Victor Hale. The little girl had been rescued. My biological mother was finally only yards away. Yet my attention was locked on one person. My husband. The man who had entered my life 3 years earlier. The man who claimed he loved me. The man who had slapped me in front of an entire restaurant. What happened in Chicago? Brian closed his eyes. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then he sat down, like a man preparing for judgment. 3 years ago, I wasn't a private investigator. The confession immediately caught me off guard. What were you? A journalist. I blinked. A journalist? Brian nodded. Investigative reporting. Organized crime. Missing persons. Human trafficking. The pieces started moving into place. Then he continued. I was researching cold kidnapping cases when I found yours. My pulse quickened. You found me? Not exactly. Someone else did first. The man in the photograph. The mysterious man watching the restaurant. Brian pointed at the image on my phone. His name was Robert Kane, a wealthy businessman from Chicago. The person who financed the search. Why? Brian's expression darkened. Because Robert wasn't trying to reunite families. He was one of Victor's partners. Cold rage surged through me. Victor wasn't acting alone. Not 27 years ago. Not now. Brian nodded. Robert handled money. Victor handled abductions. Together they built a network that destroyed families for decades. My stomach turned. Then why help them find me? The guilt on Brian's face was unmistakable. Because I didn't know the truth. At first. There it was again. At first. The same phrase he used earlier. Brian continued. They hired me to locate a missing woman. No names. No details. Just photographs. The moment I found you, I realized something was wrong. Then why stay? His eyes met mine. Because I discovered who they really were. And because I knew the second they found you, your life would be in danger. The room fell silent. For 3 years, Brian had secretly fed false information to Robert Kane. False addresses. False reports. False leads. Anything to keep them away from me. And eventually, he fell in love. The marriage started as an assignment. But somewhere along the way it became real. Then I finally understood the slap. The anniversary dinner. The humiliation. Everything. He knew Robert's people were watching. He needed me angry enough to leave. Angry enough to disappear. Before they arrived, the tears forming in my eyes surprised me. Not because I forgave him. Because I finally understood. Then Agent Marshals entered the room. The operation was over. Victor had been arrested. And hours later, Robert Kane was captured in Chicago while attempting to flee the country. The evidence from Victor's SUV, decades of records, financial transactions, and witness testimony destroyed their entire organization. The trial became national news. Families from across America finally learned what happened to their missing children. Parents who spent decades searching received answers. And Victor Hale, the man who stole my childhood, received multiple life sentences with no possibility of parole. Robert Kane received the same. But my revenge came from something far greater than prison. Every asset they owned was seized. Millions of dollars. Properties. Businesses. Accounts. The court ordered much of it distributed to victims and families whose lives they destroyed. The empire they built from suffering vanished completely. 1 year later, I stood beside my mother at a memorial for recovered victims. For the first time in 27 years, I knew who I was. Not the frightened child Victor stole. Not the woman running from her past. Someone stronger. Someone free. Brian and I never rebuilt our marriage. Some wounds run too deep. But before we parted, he helped bring down the people responsible for destroying my family. And that mattered. As I looked across the crowd, I realized something powerful. Victor stole 27 years from me. But in the end, I took everything from him. His freedom. His fortune. His secrets. His legacy. And when the prison gates closed behind him forever, the man who thought he owned other people's lives finally learned the one thing he never expected. Justice had found him. Tell me in the comments that where are you watching this story from? Like this story and also subscribe to this channel for more interesting revenge stories.